Hola chicos! For today's lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the words más and menos and using them to compare and contrast different means of transportation. So this is a repaso because we've used the words más and menos before. We know that más means more, and menos we use for less. So when we're comparing and contrasting different means of transportation and deciding which is the most appropriate for a trip, usually that's based on two things. One would be the speed, like how fast we need to get somewhere. And the other would be the price. How much money are we willing to spend to get there? So we're going to be using the expressions más and menos to talk about the speed and the price of different means of transportation. So in order to talk about the speed of a trip, we use the expressions rápido or lento. So when we're saying más rápido, when we put them together, más rápido, we're saying something is faster. Okay. We could say más lento to express that something is slower. On the other hand, we could use the expression menos, okay, to say the opposite. So if más rápido means faster, then menos rápido means slower. Or if más lento means slower, menos lento means faster. So this is an example of how we use más and menos to talk about the speed of a trip. The next is talking about the price of a trip. Okay, we have the expressions caro, which means costly or expensive, and then barato, which means cheap. So using with the word más, we could say something is más caro, or more expensive, or más barato, which is cheaper. On the other hand, we could use menos. Menos caro means less expensive, and menos barato means less cheap or more expensive. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of examples just to kind of clear this up. So in this example, we're going to compare and contrast the speed and the cost of a trip that we take by train versus a trip that we take by plane. Okay, so in the first example, let's talk about the speed. Okay, so obviously a plane is faster. If you need to get somewhere, you're going to get there much faster by plane. So to say this, we can express it by saying, un viaje en avión es más rápido que un viaje en tren. That's saying that a trip by plane is faster than a trip by train. On the other hand, we could also express the same idea by saying, un viaje en tren es más lento que un viaje en avión. Here I'm saying that the train is slower than the plane. And finally, un viaje en tren es menos rápido que un viaje en avión. Okay, so this is like the same sentence, except for saying that the train is slower. I'm saying that train is less fast. Honestly, it's really just kind of expressing the same idea, but one is an example of using más and the other is an example of using menos. Okay, let's take a look at another example, and this time we're going to talk about the price of a trip. Okay, so when comparing and contrasting the price of a trip between a plane and a train, the plane is usually more expensive than the train. So let's talk about how we can express this using más and menos. First, let's talk about using más, okay? With the expression caro, the adjective caro, we could say un viaje en avión es más caro que un viaje en tren. This sentence is saying that a trip by plane is more expensive than a trip by train. Un viaje en tren es más barato que un viaje en avión. This sentence is expressing that a trip by train is more cheap or cheaper than a trip by plane. Now let's look at an example using the expression menos. I could take the same sentence and instead of saying más barato, I could say menos caro because they mean the same thing. I'm saying one is cheaper or the other one is less costly. Okay, so it's just another way of expressing the same idea, but instead of using más, I'm going to use menos. So, un viaje en tren es menos caro que un viaje en avión. A trip by train is less expensive than a trip by plane. So as you can see here by these examples, there are many different ways that you can express the same idea. So in the next activity, I'm going to be asking you guys to come up with sentences on your own, and so you do have a few choices here, okay? There are many different ways to express an idea, so you're just going to choose whichever one you feel works best and go from there. Okay, chicos, as always with a video lesson, if you feel like you've got this, then move on to the comprehension questions. But if you feel like you need to see this a few more times, you can pause this here and rewind and rewatch this as many times as you need to until you feel ready to move on to the next section. Okay, adios.